All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm DJ Gatsby, and we're going to do a gear review today. I'm going to put the Rev 7 against the Rane 1, and I've been using both for quite a long time. I got the Rane 1 back in April of 2021, and I got the Rev 7 in January of 2022. So it's been over a year for both. I kind of use them for different things, and we're going to go through all of that today, pros and cons, and which one, after doing all these events and having them for this long, which one do I think kind of holds up to the test of time. So first up, I've got the Rev 7 here in front of me, and this is kind of my daily driver. I have it in my home studio, so whenever I'm recording mixes, whenever I'm practicing, anything like that, I'm using the Pioneer Rev 7, and I do love it. One of the first things versus the Rane 1 that you'll notice is the price tag is a little bit more. There are probably some added benefits and added features which cause it to be, I believe, about $500 more than the Rane 1. So let's get it fired up and go through them. All right, so we're getting our Rev 7 fired up here. And one of the first things that you'll notice, of course, and one of the reasons that everybody loved it, is we have the screens here in the center of the platters. So you're no longer having to look at your laptop all the time. You can look down at your hands and see what's going on. Straight out of the gate, one of my favorite features is the instant scratch. So if I don't feel like hooking up my laptop or it's in the bag from the night before, I can just come out here, I can throw on a beat, and that'll start to play. Then I can load up a scratch sound. And it's got all kinds of different ones loaded in. Yeah, go! So definitely one of the advantages I think of the Rev 7 is it has that instant scratch bank, so that if you don't feel like hooking up your laptop and you do want to do some scratching, you can get right into that. Also, there's a button up top here called Scratch Bank, so you can load samples in here. So I have a sample loaded in. And just another great feature right here, easy to get to.
You're in a mix with DJ Gatsby.
Play one of my drops, I can instantly get that. Otherwise, you've got your hot cues here, so whatever song you've got queued up, you can hit either hot cue there. The other thing that I think is really nice is the way that everything is laid out. We've got our silent cue here. We've got the roll. If you hit shift and roll, this is how we now can do this with the Serato stems. So really easy to access. I would say probably the biggest pro over the Rane 1 is our onboard effects. So you can select any one of these 6 here, or if you want to change effects, you can hold down the shift button and then cycle through some of the other effects. Okay, and I believe there's 18 or 20. Some really, really cool ones, including this duck down, which I think is probably one of the best effects that are on board. So I can show you what that does. So really a cool effect, and probably, like I said, over the Rane 1, having built-in onboard effects, where the Rane 1 uses Serato effects, hands down, this beats that all day on effects. It also has an echo on the mic settings, which is pretty cool. I don't ever use it, but definitely something that that you could use. We've got great sound coming out of it. I do use an external mixer anytime that I mix or go out and play, but this does have good sound coming straight out of the board. Of course, we've got our Motorized Platters. They feel pretty good. One thing I will say is the Rane 1, I do like the feel. I feel like it's more of a classic vinyl feel when I'm scratching. But you know, they had to do what they had to do in order to put this screen in the middle. So screen, really awesome. We've got telling you what key, if you're using a loop, how many beats it's going to go for. We've got the BPM and also the time of the song, how much is left, or you can, of course, put your logo in here. There's a lot of different things that you can do with that. As I said before, this is kind of my daily driver. I've only taken it out and done, I think, 4 or 5 live events with it, and that was partly because I was waiting on a certain case to come out. Now that that's coming out, maybe I'll take it to more, but over the past 2 years, I think I've done 140 weddings plus other corporate events. So I've used this for 4 of them, and I've used the Rane 1 for all the rest of those events. So, you know, we're talking like 130 events that I've used the Rane 1 for. A couple of the cons that I'll go through for the Rev 7 is I'm not a huge fan of this crossfader. You can adjust it down here. So you'll see down here, you can adjust your curve for your up faders. You can adjust the feeling of the crossfader along with your mic effects over here. Headphone, we got the 1/4 inch jack as well. And here is where you can control your auxiliary input. But after, and I use this every day just about to practice, but you can see we're starting to get some wear there. One thing that I did notice is if I'm cutting over to this side, it has a tendency to leave the left side playing unless I really make an effort to make sure that that's off, even the slightest amount. So the crossfader on the Rane 1, I feel is just a little bit more user-friendly. To the Rev 7 settings and kind of tinker with that a little bit so it's not quite as sensitive. So if it's over there and it happens to bounce off just a touch, then you're not out in the, you know, left out and the left side is playing. But that's just one of the cons. The other thing that I don't like is doesn't have a standard power cable that just runs out of it. It's got the power brick. I don't understand why they need the power brick, what the purpose is, what it does differently than actually creating just the regular input for the power. But to each their own. I believe that that's how Pioneer does it for most of their things. So I would like to see them put a regular power input on the back at some point. So let me take you around back. I'm going to show you all the plugins, outputs, inputs, and everything else. So let's go take a look. So if we look around the back, we can see there's our on-off. Here's that DC in that leads to the power brick. We have our mic 1. Mic 2 is a 1/4 inch, which I'm not a huge fan of. I would prefer to see another XLR, but definitely not a deal breaker. As we slide down through, we've got our auxiliary in. We have channel 1, channel 2, if you wanted to hook up turntables to this. Our USB output to go to our computer. Then we have our booth, which are 1/4 inch. There again, kind of like the CXLR, but not a deal breaker by any means, just personal preference. And then we have our master out, which we have RCA, as well as of course, the XLR. So there you have it. There's our Rev 7. Tell me what you think. We're going to go hook up the Rane 1, go through that, and see what we got. All right, guys, so we've got our Rane 1 all hooked up, ready to go. And even though they both say I think that they're both about 23 pounds, this Rane 1 is just a tank. I feel like the overall build of it is a little bit sturdier. It's got some feet on the bottom that lift it up a little bit higher. I'm 6'5", so anytime I can get a little extra height on my gear, I do appreciate it. This probably has 130 plus events that I've done with it, and it still functions like the day I got it. So one thing that I talked about before were the platters. Now, of course, these don't have the screens built in, so they're able to have more of a vinyl feel to them. So if we take a look at that, you can pop these right off, and this is just like having a 7-inch vinyl. That's one of the big advantages I see with this, is just that vinyl feel when I'm scratching.
You're in the mix with DJ Gatsby.
I just feel like I get a little bit better of a feel from these vinyls. In addition to that, this has the Mag4 Crossfader versus the Mag Pro, I believe, on the Rev 7. So you can adjust this. There are you have to take this plate off, I believe, and then you can adjust it internally. So I did have to do that to get it kind of where I want it. But it does feel good. You don't see any wear around here. And I mean, this thing has gotten used a lot. So compared to the other, I feel like the build on this is just a little bit better. Another nice thing, and this is just personal preference, is when you push the play button on these, the start stop, you know, it just has a good feel to it. It has this plunging feel. This does have the Q button. Also comes with the touch scroll up here. So if you want to scroll through your track, here are your effects buttons. There's 6 of them loaded on. And one thing that you can hear, I believe, is it's just a little bit muddier. So let's go ahead and check that out and see if we can hear any type of difference. So I don't know if it doesn't just grab at the right spot or if there's some type of delay, but it just sounds a little bit muddier than if you had the onboard effects. I would say that's everyone's gripe with this. A few of the cons I'll point out while I'm right here is if I'm at an event, I have it on, let's say I'm playing some type of warm-up, and then I go away and we're playing in a different room for a half hour, something like that, and I leave this on. When I do come back, I have found sometimes that these lights, the whole board, will dim. And I don't know if there's a connection issue with the laptop or what exactly is going on there, but each time I have to restart it and then restart Serato, and then we're good to go. Not a huge deal, but definitely something that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention. If we look at the front of this, we've got our Q levels. We have our 1/4 inch and regular headphone jack. You can adjust your contour for your deck and your crossfader. We've got our levels for the mics. No effects on this one, but here's our on-off switch. And then also, if you're going to run an auxiliary, you can see you run the auxiliary right there, and then this will control your volume highs and lows for your auxiliary. We jump around to the back. This is what I was talking about before. We've got our regular power in there. So I believe this is AC. This is the DC that Pioneer uses. As we come down, we have XLR for our booth outs, and we have an RCA and main, XLR and RCA for the main. And then we have 2 jacks for the mic, both XLR. That's my personal preference. Again, I use an external mixer most of the time, so I don't ever plug any mics into here. But is nice to see that there. And then we have our RCA in, which you can go either line or phono. So then we also have our deck input. So if you did want to hook additional turntables up to this, you certainly could. One other thing I do want to point out with the addition of the Serato stems is with the Rev 7 as it's laid out right now. And there's a couple different ways to go about it. But the way that I have to do it on the Pioneer Rev 7 is I have to hold down the shift button and then whatever effect I'm using to replace it, which on there I'm using the loop roll or something. So I have to hold shift and then hit that button because there's only 4 pads there. With this, we have 5. We have hot cue, save, loop, roll, sampler, slicer. So when I want to go into my effects or into my stems, I've replaced the slicer button with the stems, so I just have to hit that. I don't have to hit shift, hold it down. Just a little workflow that's a little bit easier, and I think worth pointing out, especially now that everybody's talking about stems, everybody's using stems. So this does make things a little bit easier to just go ahead and hit the slicer button rather than having to hit shift and then the roll button on the Rev 7. So there you have it, guys. I went through my list of pros and cons for the Rane 1, pros and cons for the Rev 7. I think the big thing here is that the Rev 7 has the onboard effects. It has the screen in the middle of the platters. Super useful, especially if you're a scratch DJ. And some of the standout things with the Rane 1 is the vinyl platter feel, which I feel is just a little bit better. It's not a deal breaker by any means. But also just build quality on this. It feels like a tank, and I'm extremely careful with all my equipment, but definitely feels good. If I had to choose one over the other, I probably would keep riding with the Rane 1. Really do enjoy the onboard effects, of course, of the Rev 7, but I don't rely extremely heavily on those effects. I feel like the echo on this is good enough, and that's the one that I use the most. I'm not using a lot of flangers and things like that. The duck down effect on the other one is great to use, so it's nice to have both. Kind of use them for different situations. But if I had to choose one right now with all the new gear that's about to come out, we have NAMM coming up. I know the Rane 4 is about to drop, and everything that we know, it doesn't have the moving platters, but it's geared more towards being user-friendly with Serato stems. So if you're not in the market for the Rane 4 and you're thinking, hey, I want to get the Rev 7, I want to get the Rane 1, which should I go with? I don't think you can lose either way. You're going to pay $400 or $500 less for the Rane 1, and I think that as far as build quality, if you're a guy that goes out and does a lot of shows, a lot of events, that the Rane 1 is the way to go. So that's just my 2 cents. I hope you enjoyed my gear review, and leave some comments below. Let me know what you think. If you have one or the other, what are some of the pros and cons that you like about each one? Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. I'm DJ Gatsby.